It is said that spending your whole life constantly afraid of making mistakes is the best way to ensure that you don't get anything done. And not only that, but without failure as a teacher, you'll never be able to find true success or access your full potential. Well, hello and welcome to the Growth Mindset Podcast with me, Sam Harris, diving into the psychology of self-improvement as always. Today, I have an incredible guest, Eccie Newton. She is a master of learning from mistakes and not letting fear get in her way. She started her first catering business out of university with her sister, Jeannie, and they had no clue how to run a business and made mistake after mistake. But over the years, she turned her harebrained ideas into an efficient business solving problems at scale and has become one of the top entrepreneurs in the country and recently raised over £252 million to scale up her business. So now with her sister, she builds commercial kitchens across London, Bristol and Brighton and has run a food entrepreneur accelerator with Uber Eats. This episode will definitely be more of a story time style episode, but it's full of enjoyable mishaps and a real masterclass on the importance of approaching life with the right mindsets and fearlessness to take things on and learn, which is why I think episodes like this are very important. So without further ado, this is Eccie Newton, the founder of Karma Kitchen, teaching us how to go from knowing nothing to being one of the most successful people in your industry.
I've been working as a chef since I was 14 years old. That's when I got my first cooking job in a kitchen. And every weekend, all summer long, I took whatever job I could get. And after that, when I was at my final year during my master's, I was at LSE. So I was in London and I was doing kind of packed lunches for myself every day. And then one of my friends, it really convoluted and quite dull story, but ended up making him lunches and selling them in his office. That's basically how Karma started. My sister joined the company very shortly after she graduated. And we've been working together ever since that point. And one company led to the other company. But yeah, in terms of our growing up together, as kids, we weren't even that close. We actually became closer as we got older, me and my sister. And now, of course, we spend every single day working together, day in, day out, which is super nice.
Nice. That's really interesting. My parents are both entrepreneurial, but are definitely not pushing me to be entrepreneurial. They were like, Sam, these things like jobs, they're pretty nice, like maybe you could work for a big company. And I'm but I don't want to. I like having holiday when I want to and being able to just make money based on how good my skills are at doing something.
Definitely what was funny is that for the first 5 years, we did not make any money and therefore did not take any holidays, which was an ironic twist of fate. So
yes. But I like the control and responsibility where the only person you can blame is yourself. Whereas, I don't like being at the mercy of someone else's point of view on things.
Yeah. And then you get investors and then you definitely...
Oh, yeah. Also, total fail.
Yeah.
Something else.
And the team that then also, you're also responsible to them, it's just, it can be a lot.
So we started with a pretty good quote on advertising entrepreneurship, but now we're basically it's the worst.
No, I love it. I would never, if I could work in this way for the rest of my life, I feel like...
As in no holidays, working all the time with lots of people.
Well, I think just it's every day feels good to come into work, to be able to choose the people that you work with and to be able to have complete freedom to try new things and experiment with different ideas and get funding for those ideas and really just drive something forward, which is nothing, taking something from literally nothing, just a flat idea, not even on a piece of paper, and then growing it into a massive company is just the best feeling. It feels so good. And again, when you're doing that with people that you just, you can't get enough of them, you just spend time with people that make you feel happy. And they don't always make you feel happy every day, and not every single person is. And sometimes you don't make other people feel happy. But I just wouldn't change that. If I could do this forever, I would do it forever, again and again.
Definitely. Although you'd point out doing something you really enjoy and then being able to just raise funding for different ideas, which maybe makes it sound a little bit easier than it is, because you did have to work for 5 years, not earning much money first to get there. And so some people do kind of jump into entrepreneurship, having heard of people build huge businesses and I'm going to smash it. And then so I've been building businesses for a long time and the first one went pretty well. The next 5, not so well. The current one's going okay, but it took 2.5 years of stuff not going that well to get somewhere.
I like to call it the Trough of Sadness.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's a great place to be. It's like people have an idea in their mind of how long they think that something is going to take before it works and is successful. And
Yep.
the reality of that time is that it's probably double the amount of time, or maybe even triple, to get what you wanted, or even close, even on the path to what you wanted it to be, than what you were expecting. And that mismatch in expectations, not just from the actual person who's doing the thing, but also from all the other people looking on around them. That is what I call the Trough of Sadness. So, you start a company, all your friends and family are super invested in it. They're interested and engaged. And then the company starts, you get some early press and it's very interesting. And then as you get kind of 1.5 to 2 years into a project, the initial kind of, like amazing, everything's going so well, that tends to kind of die down a little bit. And before it often dies down just before your actual customers start liking your product, or whatever you're making or selling starts to gain any real traction. That's the hardest place to get through. But I always find, like, if you kind of get through that moment, even if what you end up with isn't what you started with, you'll have something at the end of it that's worth fighting for. And it's certainly true. Like, I mean, Karmacans went through so much in the first probably 3 years that when the pandemic hit, and we're a corporate catering company where we lost 96% of our revenue in a week, we went through so much in the first 3 years that no one even panicked when the pandemic hit.
Nice.
That's when you know that it's like things were so bad at that point that at the end of it, even a global pandemic where you're losing everything in just a few weeks, it doesn't even faze you. You're just like, oh,
cool.
Of course, the global pandemic.
That sounds intense. Can you paint a picture a bit more of, like, give me an example of some of the intense, difficult things that went wrong in the first 3 years, please?
Oh my God, what didn't go wrong? I think it would be easier for me to just paint you a very short picture of the things that went right. Because basically, me and Ginny used to say to each other that for one thing to go right, 100 things had to go wrong first. And if one thing went right without 100 things going wrong, yeah, we were like, oh my God, what's going to go wrong next? What's going to happen next? I mean, it was just everything. It was just very hard at the beginning. We were really young. I was 23, she was 21. We really didn't know very much about business. We hadn't really worked for ourselves before. We hadn't done things like it. I mean, we didn't even send an invoice in the first 6 months of trading. We barely got paid. We didn't price right. We changed the menu every single day, which for a team of 2 was a really interesting choice, I'd say. I think every business book is like, you have to know your product. You have to sell just your product and a range of products. We were so desperate for money. We just took any job. We'd make any kind of food. There was this one day where someone asked us if we would make 50 pies and deliver them. And we did all of our deliveries by bike ourselves. So we basically made these 50 pies, and we'd never really made pies before, and it just went so wrong. Jeannie's left-handed. She couldn't use the masher. I think at one point she was just standing over the sink, mashing potatoes, crying. And I think her knuckles were bleeding. And she was just like, this is the worst day of my life. And at that time, we were sharing a kitchen with a nightclub in Soho, the Phoenix Artists Club. They were renting their kitchen space to us in the morning time. And then it was a nightclub in the evening. So we had to be out by 2. We were over time. It was probably 3:30. Their chefs were coming in to start prep for their shift. And Jeannie was just, Jeannie was crying over the mashed potato in the sink. I was trying to pack these pies that were like leaking everywhere into a bike. And we finally got it out. It was an hour and a half late. I was personally cycling them in there. I was crying by the time I arrived. I could smell the pie juice. I could smell the filling of the pies in the bike, which was always a bad sign. It means that something has leaked in the bike. I got there. It was a mess. They were all leaking everywhere. It was a complete disaster. And I got there and I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry your pies are late. And they just didn't even care. They were just kind of drunk. And I was like, why have we done this to ourselves? These people don't even care about our pies. Such a good example. So we were like, we're never stepping out of our side of our comfort zone again, kind of thing.
Nice.
The whole move into our first kitchen from that shared kitchen was one of the most informative parts of my career in some ways, like in hindsight. But at the time, we didn't have any money and we didn't raise any money. I remember the first time we went to go meet a VC, they had invited us as Karmacans to go in and talk to them about raising money for expanding and scaling Karmacans, the food catering business. And this is way before Karma Kitchen. We didn't know anything about raising money. We didn't even know what VC stood for. And they said, oh, come in and have a chat. And we were like, okay, we'll come in and have a chat with you, thinking that they meant we'll come in and have a chat. So they invited us in for this chat. We didn't know that a VC inviting you for a chat means that you have to bring a pitch deck and numbers and all the stuff. We just thought that they wanted to have a conversation with us. So we brought them some samples of our food and sat down around it. And, they opened the samples and they're like, right, so you guys want to start? And we're like, start what? Start what? You invited us. Don't you want to talk to us? And like, don't you have like a pitch deck or numbers or anything you can show us about your business? We're like, well, we've brought you some food. Like, that's pretty much it.
What we do.
And like, do you want some money? They were like, do you want money? We're like, yeah, we kind of thinking about maybe getting £10,000. That's how much money we needed to move into our kitchen out of the nightclub. So we were really keen to move out of the nightclub because it was just so dark in there and it was just not a great place to start a fresh, healthy salad company. It's a dark, sweaty basement, frequently that smelled like alcohol and vomit. No offense to them because they were an amazing team, but that is what nightclubs smell like during the day. So we're desperate to get out and get our own space. And we thought, oh yeah, 10K will just about do it. And they were like, look, the legal fees are going to cost more than £10,000 for us to give you money. This is, come back to us when you're ready. And we literally skipped off down the street. We're like, what a lovely chat. When we were doing Karma Kitchen, we were raising Karma Kitchen, we went back and met them again. And they remembered us and they were like laughing about how unprepared we were compared to later. But yeah, we wanted to move into this kitchen and we're thinking, okay, we really need money. How are we going to do it? And then a publisher approached us and said, do you want to write a raw food cookbook for us? And we don't make raw food. We make just kind of healthy-ish food. Will you write a raw food cookbook? We'll give you £10,000 in advance if you can write this book. And I just thought, yeah, what a great idea. That sounds so easy. We're going to get £10,000 at that point was like more money than either of us had ever had in our entire lives. So we were just like, yes, anything, we'll do it. We'll invent 100 raw food recipes and put them together into quite a complicated document and then shoot them and then basically publish them as a cookbook. And I remember going into the meeting with the editor like 8 months in, and I just had a sketchbook with loads of pictures of vegetables and my ideas. So such a disaster. We were so disorganized at that time. I can't believe it. Anyway, we've really improved since then. So yeah, so basically used the advance, built the kitchen, traded favors, and finally moved out of that kitchen. But then, yeah, we had to publish the cookbook at the same time. And it was just so funny. It's still available, it's 14p on Amazon. Raw is more.
Oh, wow.
Plug there. Raw is more. Yeah. Get it while stocks last because it's definitely not going into a reprint. But yeah, it's so funny. To be honest, despite it being raw food and not getting maybe the traction that it deserved, it's actually a really good book. And the food photographer that worked on it with us is one of our really good friends. It was her first cookbook that she'd ever shot, and it was our first cookbook. I think probably our last cookbook after that experience. But it was our first cookbook. And I remember saying to her, we were talking about it when we did it, and she was at university with my sister. She was really good friends with her. She said at university, she's like, we'll know we've made it when you write your first cookbook and I photograph my first cookbook. And then we laughably sat in a room together and discussed that moment as we did exactly those things. We're like, we just have not made it yet, have we? Like, we're right at the beginning of this journey. This is certainly not the conclusion that we all shouldn't have imagined. But yeah, it is true that so much stuff went wrong. We would get a client, we would lose a client, we would win a contract, and then, we would do something wrong and then we would lose it. And there was no one step that made things easier. It was just every day things got a little bit better and better and better. And then we turned around 4 years later and we were literally making 1,000 meals a day, growing a revenue-driven, completely self-owned company at like 36% a year growth. And you wouldn't have known it from the beginning, but we just suddenly started making food that was really consistent, and we got to grips with all the basics that had eluded us for many years. Yeah. Again, another business book thing is don't make the same mistakes twice. You can make a mistake once, but don't make the same mistake again. And that's how we know we're a good business. I remember first reading, I was like, but we make the same mistakes every day. The definition of us is that we do not learn from our mistakes. We are not learning from our mistakes. But we did eventually. Obviously, you have to, it was good. It's all, in the end now, the team is so strong and so good at what they do. It's actually really incredible. When I go into the kitchen now, our head chef is just outstanding. He's actually an outstanding manager and leader of that kitchen. And our team in the office, again, like our head of operations and our sales team at Karma Cans are just incredible. What they do every day, what they did throughout the pandemic, you couldn't have imagined it. I couldn't have imagined it standing where I was like in 2014 or 2015. It's just, I can't believe the team that we have around us. It's like not a shock to me because I've been with them for so long, but just the pandemic was a really amazing time for Karma Cans, especially in some ways quite a stressful time for that business. But we tried so many things. We just experimented with all these ideas. Everybody had a say and our team just turned it around. It was really amazing to watch. We did stuff so fast. We even opened a restaurant.
Wow. That doesn't make that much logical sense, but congratulations.
I know. It was a rooftop restaurant. We only opened it for the summer of 2020. Basically, we did a residency for the whole summer. And we would have never been able to do something like that because we were so busy before the pandemic. Everyone was so focused on making us as efficient as possible. And then when the pandemic hit, we did NHS catering, we did food banks, we did hampers and home delivered meals. And then we opened this restaurant. It was just, we had a great time together. Like we just did things that I thought really was a good moment for the team itself. And
Nice.
stressful time, but really good time.
Cool. Like I mentioned that I really like hearing stories. So, and you're quite a good storyteller, even if you didn't know that. Sometimes I have guests where I don't have to do very much, and I feel like you're one of those guests. I'm just...
So, you've got to direct me or I'm just going to talk for hours, honestly.
Yeah. But no, it's cool because as in, you can read a lot of business books that will tell you things like be focused on what your niche is and don't let your life be sort of dictated by clients asking for different stuff because you'll end up just sort of working and have like a hash of things that no one really cares for. And you should be like doing the thing you need to do. But then it doesn't stick. Whereas when you make that mistake yourself or you hear like an epic story, like your pie story and stuff, it's much more memorable and I think much more useful and also kind of funny. I was trying to not snort into the microphone too much and was holding it quite far from my face because I was having lots of fun.
I mentioned Pie Day because there are people in the team now who were like there at Pie Day. Pie Day.
Yeah.
It's like D-Day. People were there for Pie Day and people just still like find that story. So a few years ago at Karma Cans, we started getting really busy, like really, really busy. The run up to the pandemic, we were growing so fast. And now we're actually seeing a really strong recovery from the pandemic. I mean, I hope that things continue to go in the same direction. We got our first order, I remember, of 2,000. We had our first day of over 2,000 meals in a day. And that was a big day for us because it was basically like double what we were used to. It was a big conference. And I remember getting the van and we planned everything down to the minute. And the kitchen schedules were all written out. It was quite a while ago, I think maybe 2018. I think the first time this happened. After that, we started doing these kind of big days way more regularly and we were a lot more practice for it. By that point, we were actually learning from our mistakes. It was quite good. And everything was planned down to literally the smallest details. It was like get in at 7:00, 7:10, put the water on. And all the chefs, there were coordinating meetings between the chefs and operations team and sales team and everyone to get this day right. We had this refrigerated van that we had hired specifically for this conference to get these meals there. We packed everything in. Everything was made. We were doing amazingly for time. And we looked around, we're like, yes, God, guys, we're crushing it. This is incredible. And then we went to put the stuff in the van. And I just looked at the van. I was like, oh my God, we've really let ourselves down here. And we just had a thought about how we're going to stack the food in the van. We didn't have enough boxes or crates or anything like that. We just didn't have enough stuff. So everything was in these wobbly boxes. And in the end, someone had to ride in the back of the van, in the refrigerated van, and hold everything in place. Basically, I looked inside the van. We hadn't planned for any boxes, like crates to put the food in. So there were all these wobbly boxes. And we were packing these like thousands of lunches into this van. And I just thought, God, we've really let ourselves down here, haven't we? We've thought of everything except this bit. And of course, someone had to stand at the back of the van basically and hold all of the lunches in place as we traveled slowly at 5 miles an hour to destination. So silly. You can think of everything and then one small thing you forget. But yeah, that was such a good day. That was like the first day of 2000. That was incredible.
Nice. Congrats. Sure it'll be...
Hopefully it will come back soon.
Some bigger ones. Yeah. Wouldn't worry about it. So how did you get into the Karma Kitchen side of things? Because that's like the separate business.
Yeah, completely separate business. Karma Cans is a lunch delivery company. We make and deliver healthy-ish lunches to offices all around London. So if you're having a communal lunch at your office, you can order Karma cans and we'll arrive on our bikes and deliver your food to you. And yeah, it's got like a weekly changing or bi-weekly changing menu. It's all very healthy food, and that's been going since 2014. And Karma Kitchen is a very, very different company. Karma Kitchen, basically we buy light industrial warehouses and then we fit them out as kitchens. So we do the construction and development of those sites, building them from the ground up, or we convert the warehouse itself. And those kitchens we lease out to other food businesses. Similar businesses to Karma Cans, actually. We lease them to businesses like that, and also delivery businesses. So we have a range of different kitchen sizes, ranging from a few thousand square foot down to really small workstations, which you can just rent by the shift. So private spaces, flexible spaces, things on long-term leases. It's a whole portfolio of space. And yeah, that company is focused around providing physical infrastructure for kitchens. And also now we're starting to move into building out some of the digital infrastructure. And the whole point of Karma Kitchen is to provide the resources that businesses need to run and grow their business as easily and as low a cost as possible. So no matter where you are, if you're in a Karma Kitchen, you're going to guarantee that your rent and bills are always the same price every month. And we're starting to do some work on helping businesses understand their operating margins through some of the software that we're developing, so that they know exactly what their margin is when they're operating from a space like ours. And also building lots of kitchens all around London and the UK, and hopefully soon into Europe as well, so that you can have complete consistency. If you're, let's say, Bar and Burger, you can open 20 locations with us. You know that all of the space is going to be the same. Your contract will be the same. Your margin is going to be as similar as we can possibly get it across all those spaces. And though we don't make any food and we don't get involved at all in the business operations, we play like a supporting role. We do all the low-level operations, maintenance, cleaning, everything like that. Just don't make the food. And that's what Karma Kitchen does.
Cool. Very much sounds set up as, from what you described earlier, from some of the problems that you had. It just makes lots of sense as the things that you definitely kind of need as you're sort of starting a business, and allows you to make slightly less mistakes and have less issues.
Definitely. I think that it was such a formative experience starting a food business with no external funding and being so young. And the main problem is that we just couldn't find space. It was so hard. And it's a problem that I think pretty much every food business is faced with the exact same problem. Finding and building. Once you've found the space in the area that you want, the next problem that you face is that you have to build it yourself. And we're talking about really complicated systems, things like electrics, three-phase power, ventilation, subground drainage. These are like really difficult things to do as a business, and they're also really expensive. So the average restaurant in London spends about between £500,000 and £1 million on a site fit out. And it takes them around a year to do that. At Karma Kitchen, it takes about 2 weeks to open, and it costs £10,000. If Karma Kitchen was around today, Karma Cans could have started in just a couple of weeks and had its own private kitchen space. And that's a problem that's not unique to Karma Cans. It's every single food business faces these exact same structural problems. And I think with food, it's a particular structural issue in food and drink, because typically a food business needs to make the food quite close to where someone's going to eat it. You can't make food for people living in London if your factory is in, I don't know, Buckinghamshire, for example, unless it's FMCG. So you have to be close to the end eater, but the space close to that eater is often really expensive. You're conducting loads of different fit outs. It's not very much consistency. It's very, you end up like not being able to share the economics and gain efficiencies as a food business as easily as you might be able to do with, I don't know, maybe a design agency, which can work in one office in London and then expand to, they can do work for clients elsewhere if they need to. With food, it's you need multiple sites, and you'll have multiple leases, and you'll have multiple build projects going on, and that makes it very, very challenging.
Yeah, that makes lots and lots of sense. Considering that you've stated a few times that you don't learn from your problems, it sounds like you built a very sensible business solving all of your problems. So I'm going to call you a liar right there. And if I was a VC, I'd probably be throwing money at you, because it sounds like you're nailing it.
I think it's not fair to ask to put the pressure on you and your team to fix every single thing the immediate moment after it's happened. But the learnings that you do take from these situations can be interesting ideas to explore. It might not be the right time to explore them as the mistake is happening. You might not be ready psychologically for it, or financially your business might not be in the right situation. Like, one thing we always wanted to do was try having a residency, see what having a restaurant was like. And the pandemic gave Karmic the opportunity to do that. The previous times that we had thought about that idea, it just wasn't the right time. And like, I definitely think that timing is kind of everything. And it's not just market timing, it's also timing in terms of your life and capacity and all of that stuff that can basically define whether you are able to take a new opportunity and exploit it to its fullest potential.
So how did you go out about then just sort of describing your business in a way that VCs would understand, in terms of, it's just like a radical jump? Let's say you had to go and tell the Eccie that walked into that VC's room 5 years ago, whatever, how to raise 250 million.
Well, I would save myself some time because she obviously wouldn't believe me. Actually, the idea came to us because we were offered a deal by a massive private equity firm, because we were only out, that original time that we did it, we were only out to raise 3 million. And then a big private equity suggested this structure to us, and we just jumped on it, and we changed the entire deck and proposal and thinking around how we would structure the company and the assets versus the operating business based on that term sheet. And then we ended up getting more term sheet based just off the back of it, basically, and concluding in the structure that we're now in. So it was actually investor driven. Before then, I barely had any meetings, any external meetings outside of the company, because I was mainly focused on the kitchen and operations. I wasn't client facing. So it was through those conversations with early angel investors and VCs themselves. And, you know, most of the conversations I had with VCs were so important. Even though they were saying no, they were telling me everything I needed to know in those no's to understand my own business better. They were telling both of us, this is how your economic return profile looks to a VC. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And they were challenging both of us to come up with a different strategy. And I think many people, when they think about raising money, they think about it like it's such an effort, or it's hard being told no, or that they are impatient with VCs for not giving them the time of day. But you've got to respect, if your ears are open, people are telling you what you need to hear and how to adjust and change things. And everybody you meet can introduce you to another 5 or 10 people, and is a relationship that, you know, now in Karma Kitchen, when we see a business that we think, oh, this business is doing so well, they are the kind of business that would be perfect for, I don't know, like Kindred or some other VC that we met and talked to. You have those relationships now that you can then help other businesses that maybe want to start having those conversations. Even people that have said no to you, if you had a really great chat with them or several really good talks with them, they're always a resource that you can call on and be like, hey, I was just wondering about this thing, or thinking about doing a partnership with this person. Like, do you know anything about it? And people really, you know, I don't know, I feel like we've had really great experiences like meeting those people, and it's been really great to like meet more and more people and build a really interesting network of people. Even if they're not the right people to give money to your business, doesn't mean that you can't like get a lot from that relationship. Maybe I have a different view on it to most people, but I really enjoyed the whole thing.
Yeah, and sounds like you had the right approach for it, for sure.
Don't be disheartened when people say no to you, because yes, they will say no to you, but it's okay. Like, that's so. I feel like so many people say no to us, but we must have got like, so I don't know how many no's we got. A lot at both rounds, but that's kind of part of fun, isn't it?
Yeah,
did a lot of people say no to you, or was it just like, yes, 150k, here you go?
Oh no, so many no's. It was a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Good.
You just got to be committed.
Every year of no's.
Yeah, don't worry about it. That was saved for us pretty much. I think we were just talking to the completely, you know, we basically woke up one morning, we're like, when we got this offer from KKR for this 200 million, the first one, we didn't take that offer. When we got that, we were like, oh my God, we've been doing this wrong this whole time. Like 6 or 7 months of just like doing the wrong thing completely, talking to the completely wrong type of investors. And as soon as we realized that, we were just like, oh, okay, now we know what we need to do. And you just have those like little breakthroughs, I guess. Well, not little breakthroughs, massive breakthroughs, really, really late in the day. But you're really like, you're like thinking, God, this is just so hard. But Yeah, so funny.
Definitely. Oh, that's cool. Nice. Thanks. So I guess that was because you framed it more around like property ownership and, well, quite a bit different business model to what it sounded like before, right?
I mean, same exact business model, just a better structural way of achieving it, and a way to like grow it as big as possible, which is like obviously the key thing. We just want to make it as, we'd love to get to, 30 to 50 sites in the UK and like another 30 in Europe. And in order to do that, you need a lot of money because each site is quite expensive to develop them and takes a long time, and you've got to have that done right. Cool.
Good. Anyway, you also give really good answers when your first answer or you're a bit unsure about something and you get like pushed a little bit and you explain yourself and then it's this magic, which is really interesting. But now we're going a
We
bit.
can cut out the unsure bits at the beginning, can't we? We can just dive straight in. Probably save it. We'll probably cut like an hour. You probably cut like an hour out. You just cut out just they can just go.
Yeah.
You just have the confident second answer.
Nice. Well, I'll quickly record the fact that we're finishing the podcast. Okay. So thanks so much for joining. It's been great. And you're welcome back.
Thanks very much for having me. It was great to meet you.
Well, thanks so much for Eccie Newton coming onto the show. As I said, wonderful episode full of stories unpicking all the things you need to deal with running a business and how to learn and grow it into something that solves big problems at scale. From dealing with her chaotic menu systems and taking on any work that they could get, like the Pi Day incident or the recipe book failures, she slowly learned the problems of running a true commercial kitchen and ended up building a giant business that solves all of the problems for other food entrepreneurs at scale. And I just think the story really shows you that you don't need to know exactly what it is that you're going to end up doing, but to just do something with all of your energy and learn as you go along. So I hope this episode inspired you to throw yourself into the deep end, or at least taught you something important about not worrying about the fear of failure. After all, what is the worst that can happen? And on that, I'm going to embrace my fear of failure and request that you perhaps give me a good rating on your podcast player of choice. Now, a good rating will really, really help me look cooler when I go to school reunions and people ask me what I'm doing and I can be like, oh, check my podcast out. I've got so many good ratings. Also, it may help the algorithm promote the podcast or something, but it probably won't, let's be honest. Mainly, I would just like to look cooler at the school reunions because I've got one coming up soon. So thank you so much. I've tried. If you didn't, then I failed, but it didn't matter because I tried anyway. Next, remember that life is to be enjoyed. It isn't very long, and putting off enjoyment to a future date after you've achieved something, etc., is a fool's game. So get onto the enjoyment train right now. That does mean enjoying today. It might not be easy, but be kind to yourself, and whilst you're at it, be kind to someone else too. Thanks for listening.